Upon being born into this bloodline, you feel yourself embodied and interwoven with the Force. That is something that exists throughout the multiverse and allows those with talent and a knack for learning to control the Force, creating various feats that would be impossible for a mortal man and the women and children too. Howdy, 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 everyone. Welcome back to Luke's Homebrew. I just want to give you a short rundown on my new subclass for the Sorcerer, known as just the Force. There will be two other sets of subclasses for both the Monk and the Cleric. If you're interested, those should be popping up here soon if you're watching this video first. Otherwise, I'll just give it a search. You might be able to find them if you're interested. Otherwise, this is my short little series where I'm giving you a quick rundown of the subclass. You can get my insights upon creating it, and hopefully, if you had any questions upon reading it before you introduce it to your game, hopefully I can answer them. Otherwise, if you are curious and I didn't answer your question in this video, down the doobly-doo will be my Instagram and Twitter information. Just send me a DM and I'll probably respond within 24 hours, but give me some leeway. I'm still working. So, getting to meat potatoes, because that's what you're interested in. We'll go over our first level ability and tell you the insights and go on and so forth. So, starting at first level, you start down a path that guides you down your Force abilities, and you continue living by several tenets that increase your power. Now, this whole class is divided, except for the final ability, is divided into the Jedi or the Sith. And that is a choice that you can pick with your Dungeon Master and as you decide and build your character. But it is assumed that if you pick Jedi, you're expected to follow Jedi as you continue leveling up, unless you fall to the dark side, in which I think, in my opinion, how I would rule it is if you start acting evil, you could then completely switch over to the Sith side of this. But I figured I'd leave it as one subclass, that way all the information's all in one spot. So the abilities tend to mirror each other. So you'll see in this first level ability where Jedi gets 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your wisdom modifier is now their AC. And they gain a proficiency and expertise in one skill on the sorcerer skill list. Whereas Sith, they get 10 plus dexterity modifier plus charisma modifier, and they learn the hex spell. It counts as a spell that they know, or it doesn't count as towards their total of spells known, but they still have to use a spell slot to cast it. The reason why I chose wisdom over charisma is Jedi are obviously known for being wise sages, and it seemed more thematically fitting. And Sith obviously feed on their passion and their rage, and those are all things that I personally tie to charisma. So that was kind of the emphasis behind that. You can have both be charisma since you're going to be a sorcerer, but that's kind of how I managed and kind of thought of it. At 6th level, that's Force Attunement. You've mastered manipulating the Force and its connection to objects. You may attune to an additional magic item. Additionally, and this is very important, there will be another set of packets coming out here soon. Link will be in the doobly-doo once it does hit the market. The point for the additional magic item is I have created the lightsaber, both single blade and double blade, for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So, it does require attunement due to its nature. So this ability kind of mirrors, you've hit the point where you understand the Force enough, and also your player has enough HP, to really be able to be gifted their first lightsaber by the Order, or by their Sith Master. So, continuing on. So Jedi, while attuned to a magic item, you may expend 1 sorcery point as a reaction to increase your armor class by 5 until the beginning of your next turn. So, basic shield, but it costs you a sorcery point. As far as my understanding of it goes, 2 sorcery points transfer to a first level spell, so this is slightly better. But nonetheless, it's not OP. At 6th level, you have 6 sorcery points, and hopefully you're using those for better things. This is more of a save my ass type of thing. Whereas the Sith, while attuned to a magic item, magic weapon, you may expend 1 sorcery point, and as your bonus action, gain 2 additional attacks when you make the attack action. So, this ability is very specific. You have to have used your action to make an attack. Only after then can you spend 1 sorcery point to gain 2 additional attacks. The reasoning behind this and why I allowed 2 attacks, because I was on the fence about this, was you are giving up a lot as a 6th level caster to have to make the attack action rather than casting a spell. So I wanted to A, reward that, but B, also reward the fact that generally sorcerers shouldn't be in melee. But this gives the Sith, when they're forced into melee, to really shine in that aspect. Whereas the Jedi is more, get me the hell out of dodge. But hopefully that answers any questions about those. Let's move on to 14th level, Master the Force. You have reached either the rank of Master in the Jedi, so obviously Anakin was 13th level, or become a Dark Lord the Sith. So, starting with Jedi, you learn a ritual that takes 1 hour to complete. Upon completion, each Jedi that died before you passes on their knowledge to you for a very brief period. For the next 24 hours after completing the ritual, you know all the spells from every class's spell list, of which you have spell slots to cast. Once this ability has been used, you may not use it again for another 7 days. So, we'll go over this, and we'll go over Sith real quick. So, yes, this is a very overarching and powerful ability. I do not deny that. And probably your best target would be cleric spells, especially if you and your party are planning on going to a big fight. Because if you're planning on going to or take some cleric spells that into some combat, then you'll be able to revive your allies, or perhaps there's one specific druid spell that'd be very useful in a very niche situation, or you could get clever with it and choose Magic Jar from Wizard class. I don't know how Jedi like that would be, but that is pretty much the essence of this. I know it's powerful, but if you look at Divine Soul Sorcerer, they get the whole cleric spell list. And really adding on a few other classes, with just the cleric and sorcerer spell list for Divine Soul Sorcerers, that's about 80 to 70% of the whole game's spells. So I'm not all too worried about it. But moving on to Sith, you fall deep into the dark side of the Force, bringing you into a rage-fueled, unquenchable anger. As a bonus action, you may enter your Sith Rage. While raging, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Your weapon and spell attack rolls gain +2 to hit. Your spell save DC increases by 2, and when you activate it, each hostile creature within 60 feet must make a Wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC or be frightened of you for a minute. This ability lasts up to a minute, and it may be ended early as an action. You may use this feature once per long rest. So I thought very long and hard about the dyad of these two sets of abilities, and really tried to balance their power levels. And Jedi, I was always thinking, I want this subclass to be very versatile. Whereas for Sith, I want this subclass to be an absolute monster in combat and be the best type of evil warrior that you can produce. So it's very simple and bare bones. You get resistance, you get some buffs to your hits, and your spell save DC increases by 2. You can use it once per long rest, and pretty much you're just going supernova. It's not all too complicated. Like I said, if you have any questions, DM me. My stuff is down below. But we're gonna move on to 18th level, One with the Force. You've reached a point in connection to the Force that you are the pinnacle of the Jedi or Sith. So you're pretty much the Yoda or the Palpatine of your order. You gain proficiency in all saving throws, and if you were to die, resurrection spells no longer require material components or are restricted to a time limit to bring you back to life. I'm very fond of abilities that, especially late game, that allow your character to live on. I think those are very important and very few and far between. And I saw using the Force as a very interesting way to kind of incorporate that into 5th edition. So this is useful, especially gaining proficiency in all saving throws. Obviously, that's powerful. And that's really the meat and potatoes of this ability. But what I really resonated with was this was a way for your character to live on in future campaigns and cause trouble for you, or perhaps help your future party. Because all too often I find that when I reach 18th level, or one of my players reaches pretty much the last tier of the game, they're trying to grasp and find ways to keep this character around. So I saw this as one opportunity for this subclass. But that concludes this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, do all the things, you know the drill, everyone tells you to. But if you made it this far, that's all I need from you, or want from you. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.